Most financial advice stops at the same place. Build an emergency fund, pay off debt, invest consistently, live below your means. All correct, all necessary, and almost nobody tells you what comes after. Because once the foundation is actually built, once the debt is handled, the emergency fund is established, and investing is automatic, a new question shows up. One most people never get an answer to. What do you actually do with the money now? Some people never figure this out. They keep living exactly the way they did when money was tight, long after it stopped being necessary. Others make the opposite mistake. They start spending on anything and everything and undo years of discipline in a few months. There's a narrower path between those two extremes. Specific things worth spending on once you can actually afford them. Not careless lifestyle inflation, not upgrades bought only to look successful. Purchases that grow your money, protect what you have, protect you, or make the life you built genuinely better. Today, I'm going to walk through 10 of them, what they are, why they're worth it, and how to know you're actually ready for each one. Let's start with the first one, invest beyond the basics. If you've built a core portfolio of low-cost index funds, you've already done the part that matters most. That foundation should never be abandoned or replaced. It's the part doing the unglamorous work of actually building your wealth over decades. But once it's solid and once you have money left over that you could genuinely afford to lose, you can start exploring a second, smaller category. Individual stocks you've researched yourself, real estate investment trusts, bonds outside your core mix, collectibles like art, watches, or classic cars. Here's the part people get backwards. They treat this second category as the main event and the foundation as an afterthought. It should be the opposite. Your foundation does the heavy lifting, and this second category is just where you're allowed to take calculated risks with money you've already decided you can live without. This is the research most people never see before they start picking stocks. Over the past 15 years, not one single category out of 22 track types of U.S. stock funds had a majority of professional full-time fund managers beat their benchmark index. Full-time professionals with teams of analysts, and most still can't reliably beat a simple index fund. That's the real backdrop for anyone picking stocks on their own. Say you put $5,000 into a single company you've researched carefully. If it doubles, that's $5,000 a gain. If it goes to zero, you lose $5,000. That should sting a little if it happens, but it shouldn't threaten your retirement, your rent, or your sleep. That's the actual test. Not whether you can technically afford the purchase, whether losing it entirely would change your life. The same test applies to collectibles. The Knight Frank Luxury Investment Index, which tracks watches, art, and classic cars, has grown by more than 70% over the past decade, a strong return. But you can't sell a third of a watch when you need cash quickly, and short-term swings can be sharp even when the long-term trend is upward. That illiquidity is a real cost, even when the asset itself performs well. The mistake to avoid isn't taking risks. It's taking risks with money you can't actually afford to lose, disguised as an investment. Keep this category small relative to your core. A small slice of your total investments is exploring. Half your savings in it is a side project that has quietly become your main strategy, usually without you ever deciding to. If it grows until it represents a much larger share of your portfolio than you originally intended, rebalance before one bad year undoes years of progress elsewhere. Get the split right, and this category adds potential upside without putting your financial foundation at risk. The next upgrade doesn't touch your portfolio at all. It touches your calendar. 2. Buy back your time. On an average day, people spend close to 2 hours on housework, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Over a full year, that adds up to somewhere around 700 hours. That's measured national data, and it doesn't even include errands, driving, or the mental load of managing a household. Once your income crosses a certain point, some of those hours are worth more doing something else than they're worth doing yourself. The way to know for sure is to calculate your effective hourly rate. Take your yearly income and divide it by the hours you actually work in a year. Someone earning $75,000 a year, working around 2,000 hours annually, has an effective hourly rate of $37.50. Run every task through one simple filter. If it costs less per hour to hand off than your own number, and it isn't something you specifically enjoy doing, it deserves a real look. Cleaning, laundry, meal preparation, lawn care, basic bookkeeping, grocery delivery. This has nothing to do with being lazy. It's about running the actual math instead of making an assumption. If hiring a cleaner for $100 a month buys back 5 hours you'd otherwise spend cleaning, and 5 hours of your time is worth more than $20 an hour to you, you're not spending money. You're trading a lower value task for an hour that creates more value financially, physically, or personally. But that's only half the equation. This is the part most people skip. Buying back time only pays off if the recovered hours actually go somewhere that matters. More client work, more rest, more time with the people you'd otherwise be too tired to be present with. If the 5 hours you bought back just get filled with more scrolling, you didn't buy anything. You just moved the wasted hour and paid for the privilege. The test isn't just, can you afford to outsource it? It's, do you have somewhere better for that hour to go? Childcare, where it's genuinely needed and affordable, belongs in the same math. It's what lets a parent work, build a business, or simply recover instead of running on empty. Time bought back is only worth something if it goes somewhere useful. One of the best places it can go is into your own skill set. 3. Buy knowledge and valuable skills. This category covers three things that often get lumped together but actually work differently: knowledge, mentorship, and high income skills. Knowledge means books, courses, certifications, and industry reports. Cheap in the grand scheme of things, and the return can be enormous. A $20 book that changes how you think about debt, negotiation, or building a business can be worth more than almost anything else on this list, but it's only valuable if it closes a real gap you actually have. Buying a course you'll never finish isn't an investment, it's a donation to your own guilt. Mentorship is different, and people often hesitate here because it feels strange to pay for something that used to be free, back when it was just a friend giving advice over coffee. But a coach or an experienced advisor who has already built what you're trying to build isn't overhead. They're the fastest way to avoid the specific mistakes that would otherwise cost you months or years to learn on your own. A long-term study following close to 1,000 young people found that those matched with a mentor earned 15% more in their early 20s than those who weren't. One relationship tracked for decades, producing a measurable financial gap that never closed. And then there are high-income skills: copywriting, video editing, sales, financial analysis, website development, using artificial intelligence tools to automate work that used to take hours. These compound because once you have the skill, you can sell it again and again for the rest of your working life. A $2,000 course that increases your income by $6,000 a year adds up to $60,000 over a decade from a single outlay. Compare that to a car that loses value every year you own it. Learn to run targeted ad campaigns, help a small business bring in an extra $10,000 a month in new sales, and charging them $1,500 a month for it is an easy decision for them to make. That's the shape every high income skill takes. You get paid a fraction of the value you create, and the fraction is still a very good living. Skills and knowledge compound because you're the one holding them. There's one more compounding factor in your financial life, and it isn't a skill at all, it's a person. 4. Choose the right partner. The fourth upgrade is different. It isn't something you can buy, and it certainly isn't about replacing someone once you start earning more. It is about recognizing that few decisions affect your long-term financial trajectory as much as who you choose to build your life with. Two people can have identical incomes and identical starting points and end up in completely different financial positions 10 years later, depending on one variable: whether their partner shares their approach to money. Here's a study worth knowing about. Researchers at Kansas State University followed more than 4,500 couples over time. They found that arguing about money was the single strongest predictor of divorce, ahead of arguments about children, in-laws, or anything else. And the effect held true no matter how much a couple earns, saved, or owed. Not the amount of money, the arguing about it. This isn't about finding someone wealthy, it's about finding someone financially compatible. Similar attitudes toward debt, similar willingness to save before spending, honest, uncomfortable conversations about money happening early instead of being avoided for years because they feel awkward. Picture two households with the same combined income. In one, both people know exactly what's coming in, what's going out, and what they're building toward together. In the other, spending happens separately, debt gets hidden or minimized, and financial stress becomes a recurring argument instead of a shared project. Same income, very different 5 years from now. The hidden cost is easy to miss. It isn't just the arguments. It's the years spent working against each other instead of toward the same goal. The debt taken on and discovered later. The retirement plan that never got started because the household never agreed on one. None of it shows up as one dramatic event. It shows up as a slow leak that only becomes visible years later when the numbers finally get compared side by side. Please do not misunderstand this point. It isn't an instruction to evaluate relationships purely as financial transactions. It's a recognition that financial compatibility, being honest, planning together, and sacrificing for the same goals are some of the clearest predictors of whether wealth gets built as a team or drained by two people quietly pulling in different directions. Compatibility keeps two people moving in the same direction. The next upgrade is about making sure your own work keeps moving too. 5. Upgrade your money-making tools. Once you're earning money from a skill, a side business, or a craft, the tools you use to do that work stop being expenses. They become part of what actually produces the income. A slow laptop that crashes during client work. A camera that limits the quality of what you can deliver. Software that takes 3 extra hours a week to do what better software could do in 20 minutes. Each of those is capping how much you can earn or how well you can serve the clients you already have. A better piece of software that saves 5 hours a week, valued at $37.50 an hour, recovers nearly $9,700 a year. Most people never run that calculation. They just look at the sticker price of the new tool without ever pricing out what the old tool is quietly costing them in wasted hours. The rule here isn't to buy new equipment because something newer exists. That's the same upgrade trap that shows up everywhere else in personal finance, just wearing a business disguise. It's to upgrade when the current tool is the actual bottleneck. If clients are commenting on quality, if projects are taking longer than they reasonably should, if the tool itself is the reason the work isn't scaling, that's the signal to upgrade. Boredom with what you already own is not. This extends past physical equipment too. A customer management system that stops leads from slipping through the cracks. Automation that handles repetitive scheduling or invoicing without a person doing it by hand every time. Faster internet if slow uploads are costing hours every single week. Not one of these sounds thrilling. Each one sets a ceiling on how much work you're actually capable of taking on. Depending on local tax rules, work equipment can sometimes lower your tax bill, reducing its effective cost. That doesn't make the tool free, but it does mean the real cost is usually lower than the price tag suggests once it's actually helping you earn. Better tools protect your output. The next upgrade protects your numbers. 6. Buy better financial guidance. There's a specific mistake people make here. They assume paying for financial help means handing over all responsibility and never looking at their own numbers again. It doesn't. The goal is to combine expert guidance with enough of your own understanding that you always know what's happening with your money, even when someone else is helping manage it. An accountant who understands your specific situation, not a generic template built for someone else's business. A bookkeeper who keeps your numbers current instead of receiving a shoebox of receipts once a year in a panic. A tax professional who plans ahead throughout the year instead of just filing paperwork every April. For business owners, a lawyer who reviews contracts before they're signed, not after something has already gone wrong and the damage is already done. The resistance here is usually the cost. Nobody wants to pay someone else to look at their own money, but the actual comparison isn't the fee against zero. It's the fee against what a missed deduction, a bad contract, or a late tax penalty actually costs. A single overlooked deduction can cost more in 1 year than several years of a good accountant's fee combined. The accountant isn't the expensive part. The mistakes you make without one are. Software helps here too, and it doesn't have to be expensive. Tools that track expenses automatically, generate profit and loss statements, and connect directly to your bank account remove most of the manual administration that keeps people from ever looking at their own numbers in the first place. The goal isn't to outsource your financial awareness, it's to remove the friction that has been stopping you from having it. Estate planning belongs in this category too, even though almost nobody wants to think about it. A will and clear instructions for what happens to what you've built aren't things to leave until later. Later is exactly when it becomes someone else's problem at the worst possible time, when clarity would have mattered most. Good guidance keeps your money organized. It doesn't protect you if something goes wrong. That's the next one. 7, buy protection. There's a number here that should concern more people than it does. Only around 43% of working Americans currently have disability insurance. And separately, roughly 1 in 4 of today's 20-year-olds will experience a disability serious enough to keep them out of work for a year or more before they reach retirement age. That's not a small risk sitting quietly in the background. That's a significant risk spread across a working lifetime, and most people are walking through it with no plan at all. Health insurance, disability or income protection insurance, life insurance if other people depend on your income, renters or homeowners insurance, business insurance if you run one, basic cybersecurity and secure data backups if a hacked account or a lost hard drive could genuinely hurt you financially. None of these make you richer the day you buy them. You might pay into some of them for years and never need to use them. That's the part that makes them feel like a waste, right up until the year they aren't. The math makes this real fast. A disability insurance premium might run around $40 a month, or roughly $4,800 over 10 years. The average disability claim lasts close to 3 years. At $5,000 a month in lost income, that's over $170,000 at risk, with no insurance in place to replace any of it. $4,800 against $170,000 isn't really a close comparison once you see both numbers next to each other. This is the part most people do not calculate, because the cost of protection is visible every month and the cost of not having it is invisible until the exact date it isn't. Growth without protection is fragile. One uninsured crisis, a serious illness, a lawsuit, or a house fire can erase years of careful saving and investing. Protection isn't the exciting purchase on this list. It's the one that decides whether everything else you've built turns out to be permanent or temporary. Protection covers what could go wrong around you. The next one protects what's actually producing the income in the first place. 8, protect your body. If your income depends on your ability to work, whether that's sitting at a desk, standing on your feet all day, or using your hands for skilled labor, your body is the actual asset producing that income. It rarely gets treated that way. A chair that supports your back properly instead of wrecking it over years. A desk at the right height, a keyboard, a mouse, and a screen positioned so you're not straining your neck for 8 hours a day without noticing. A mattress that doesn't leave you stiff and half functional every morning. Preventive checkups instead of waiting until something hurts badly enough to force an appointment you've been avoiding for a year. Not one of these is a glamorous purchase. Each one protects the single thing every other item on this list actually depends on. The hidden cost here is easy to miss. According to OSHA, musculoskeletal disorders account for over a third of all lost workdays in the United States. These are the kinds caused by years of poor posture and unsupportive setups, and they cost businesses more than $20 billion a year in direct costs alone, before counting the lost productivity on top of that. A bad chair doesn't announce itself the day you buy it. It shows up years later as chronic back pain, missed work days, and a physical therapy bill that costs far more than the good chair would have. The damage is slow enough that most people never connect the two. Here's the actual point. Comfort isn't why this matters. Treat your body the way you treat any other piece of equipment your income relies on. You wouldn't run a business on a laptop you knew was about to fail. Don't run your income on a body you're neglecting either, just because the failure takes longer to show up. A protected body still needs to recover. That's where sleep comes in, and it matters more than most people think. 9. Invest in sleep and recovery. Researchers have found that after being awake for around 17 to 19 hours, a person's cognitive and motor performance drops to a level similar to having a blood alcohol concentration of 0.05%. That's the same level used to define legal impairment while driving in many places. Stay awake for 24 hours and performance drops to a level similar to 0.1% blood alcohol, which is above the legal limit almost everywhere. Most people would never make a major financial decision after a few drinks. Plenty of people make them after months of 5 or 6 hours of sleep a night and don't think twice about it because the impairment doesn't come with the same warning signs. A supportive mattress, blackout curtains, a consistent sleep schedule that doesn't collapse every weekend. These aren't indulgent purchases. They're closer to insurance for your judgment. Bad decisions made while exhausted, a rushed investment, an impulsive purchase, or a short-tempered conversation that damages a relationship or a business deal tend to cost far more than the mattress or the curtains ever would. This is where it gets expensive in a way most people never trace back to its source. The financial mistakes made from exhaustion don't get labeled as sleep problems. They get labeled as bad decisions, bad luck, or a bad week. The actual cause, 17 hours awake and performing like someone legally impaired, rarely gets named. A fitness or sleep tracker can help if it's actually used to make changes. So can genuine rest days, time away from work that isn't spent half checking email, and real medical support if a sleep problem has stopped being occasional and started being constant. The goal isn't to chase 8 hours as some kind of trophy. It's to stop treating sleep as the thing you sacrifice first when everything else feels urgent, when it's actually protecting the quality of every single decision you make while awake, including the financial ones. Everything up to this point has been about growing, protecting, or sustaining what you have. The last one is about actually using it. 10. Buy experiences, not just things. This last one isn't a contradiction of everything said so far. It's the actual payoff for it. Once your protection is in place, your foundation is solid, and your income is growing, some of that money should go toward things that don't show up on a balance sheet at all. Travel, a concert with people you love, a class you've always wanted to take, a trip home to see family you don't see often enough before you no longer get the chance to. Physical purchases lose their charge quickly. The excitement of a new gadget or a nicer version of something you already own tends to fade within weeks. Then it just sits there, no longer new, just another object taking up space. Experiences work differently. They get retold, remembered, and folded into who you actually are long after the money has been spent and the receipt is long gone. This doesn't mean every physical purchase is wrong. Some tools and some possessions genuinely improve daily life and are worth every dollar. But once the essentials are covered and you're deciding where the extra money goes, experiences tend to deliver something that things generally don't. A memory that appreciates every time it's retold, instead of an object that quietly goes out of date the moment something newer replaces it. Picture two purchases of roughly the same size, a new television and a week away with people you love. A year from now, the television is just part of the furniture, barely noticed. The trip is still a story you tell, a photo you smile at, a reference point in a conversation with the people who were there. Same amount of money, very different return, just measured in something other than dollars. At the beginning, we talked about a question most people never get an answer to. What do you actually do with the money once the basics are handled? The answer isn't to spend more, and it isn't to spend less forever either. It's this: grow what you have carefully with money you can actually afford to risk. Protect what you've built and protect the person building it. And once all of that is genuinely in place, let some of it go toward a life that's actually worth having built the money for in the first place. That's the real difference between money that just sits there, quietly waiting for a use it never gets, and money that's actually working for the life you're trying to build.